This course is brought to you by AppyPie as part of our Academy series.
In this video, I want to talk about the pros and cons of all the different mobile app platforms. There are so many, too many options. Of course, everybody knows about Android and Apple. They're the leading ones, but there's a lot of country-specific ones. Like there's one for China, there's one for India, there's one for a lot of countries specifically. And then there's the platforms, Nook, Kindle, even the BlackBerry, even the Watch apps, even Microsoft and Samsung. They all have app stores, and there's so many app stores, it's never ending, and management becomes a nightmare. You have way too many app stores to prioritize, and there's no real right answer of where you should put your app, because if you can go to a smaller app store but become the number one app there in your category, that's fantastic. You might be able to get more downloads compared to if you struggle, let's say, on a big platform like Apple or Android. You might have some extremely strong competitors where on smaller platforms you won't. But generally, what I would recommend is to understand that for each app, when you upload it to a different platform, you need to do specific marketing for that platform, extra testing. I hope you're doing testing, getting extra reviews specifically for that platform. Maybe sometimes they require extra development. Sometimes they have a different language the app needs to be reprogrammed in. And even if it doesn't, sometimes there's platform specific features. For example, the payments for in-app purchases are handled differently on Kindle apps versus the Android Google Play apps. Even though it's all Android underneath, there's just some code specifics, so that has to be managed. Of course, bugs have to be fixed, found, and then fixed. There's a lot of work for each platform. Don't underestimate the work, because if you underestimate the work, you'll neglect the apps and then they'll underperform and you won't get much out of it anyway. So it really doesn't help to have a struggling app in a third-rate app store. So my suggestion is to perfect an app on one platform. If you're not stuck with having to launch on iPhone and Android, even if you launch on Apple and Android, you can still experiment on one of them and perfect the app on one platform. And then when something is really working on one platform, put it on the other. But otherwise, you'll just be expanding extra resources per updating both platforms, because once the app grows and monetizes well, then that's when you start putting the app on other app stores. But don't rush beyond Apple and Android, because for most apps the recommendation is to focus on the marketing and the making the app profitable there, because if the app is truly effective and profitable there, those are the markets. After those markets, the Android and Apple, the drop off in effectiveness in downloads is extremely steep. So if you win on Android and Apple, if you become the number one in your category or close to number one, the results you get from that you won't get anywhere else. So those are the primary focus for going big. Now let me tell you a little bit about my own strategy for how I did it. I launched with Android only. I experimented with any new feature on Android only because I was able to experiment cheaply and very rapidly. So all the experimentation happened on Android, and only when something was perfected, I had put it on iOS. In my case, I also put my apps on the Nook, on the Kindle, but I didn't have time to really update them all the time. So I kind of just neglected them. I made maybe a couple of updates on them a long time ago, and then I had to leave it. I just didn't have time for them. And they really weren't paying for themselves to be updated. They were making a little bit of revenue, but not enough to warrant real attention, even though I was number one in my category on those platforms. So let's say you've perfected your app on Android and it's perfected on Apple, and it's monetizing really well. Then when you put your app on the next platforms, whatever that platform is, make sure that you don't just place it and forget it. That's the tendency, to place it there, upload it there and forget it and hope for the best. You have to focus on it just like you focused on Android and Apple until it's ranking number one for its keywords, until it's number one for its category, then you get all the best results. If you upload it there and dump it and it sits there with no reviews or one review or something, it doesn't help you. It's going to be the 10th app in a 5th rate app store. It's not really going to give you anything. It's not going to be worth its effort. So you've got to give it the proper focus. Only then you'll start really benefiting from it. And in my view, that should really only happen once the app is monetizing effectively per install.